Is Donald Trump corrupt?
Well, let me deal with Don Ayers first. I've known him for a long time too. We worked together at the Department of Justice, and he's a man of integrity, as well. Look, what I think Donald Trump focuses on is Donald Trump. A lot of people think that he's a conservative Republican and that this is a race in November between a conservative Republican and a liberal Democrat. I know Joe Biden well, too. I've crossed swords with him in the foreign affairs field and in the Judiciary Committee field. He is a liberal Democrat. Donald Trump is not a conservative Republican. And what I tried to show in the book is that he doesn't operate on the basis of philosophy. He doesn't operate on the basis of grand strategy or even policy. He operates on the basis of what's good for Donald Trump. Look, I understand every president takes politics into account in almost all of their decisions. No surprises there. The difference here is not a matter of small degree. This is a qualitative difference in the way Donald Trump approaches the job. And that is what you saw reflected in the Ukraine experience.
I guess I'm trying to get at, and just, I mean, my viewers know this by now. I covered your absence from the impeachment proceedings with this perhaps fantasy that you would show up and tell your story and come in and corroborate the accounts of Fiona Hill, who I know you've worked with and hold in high regard. And I understand the lawsuit, and I understand you were waiting for Kupperman, but help me understand how you feel about not telling your story at a time when it might have changed the horse, when we might have had Mike Pence in charge of the country's coronavirus response.
Look, I think, as I write in the book, that the Democratic leadership in the House competed impeachment malpractice. We know in this country how to conduct an impeachment process that actually leads to a result, that is to say, the removal of the president from office. If your job here is to rally the base or do a little virtue signaling to make you feel good, there's a way to do that too. But the Democrats, by their own choice, did not follow the example of Sam Ervin and Howard Baker. They did not try and work together with the Republicans. As a consequence, they drove the Republicans into their partisan corner in the House and the Senate, and you basically got a partisan process. What's frustrating about that to me, and I think should be to Americans, is that the end result is not what Nancy Pelosi said, that the impeachment would deter Trump from the conduct that they objected to. There's impeachment, and then there's the Senate trial, and Trump was acquitted in the Senate. So he was not deterred. He was empowered by a badly flawed impeachment process. I don't march to Nancy Pelosi's drum. I decided that I would make myself available to the Senate, but by that point, they had been persuaded by the White House legal argument that no matter what any other witness said, even if every bad motive could be imputed to Trump on Ukraine, his conduct, however reprehensible, did not rise to the level of an impeachable offense, which meant that anything anybody else, myself included, would have said would have been swept aside. I thought the better course in the midst of this gross incompetence in the political process was to put it before the ultimate judge, the American people. That's what I've tried to do. If they look at what's in the book, they'll make up their own mind. And ultimately, if we can't trust their judgment, the country's in deep trouble.
Hey there, I'm Chris Hayes from MSNBC. Thanks for watching MSNBC on YouTube. If you want to keep up to date with the videos we're putting out, you can click subscribe just below me or click over on this list to see lots of other great videos.